G'day, hi and welcome. Oh, sore. Why am I sore? Because I was shoveling goat poop. So, note to self, become very rich musician, make $4 million a night, and then you don't have to shovel goat poop anymore. Alright, okay, anyway, fantasy's over. Back to reality. How many backup guitars should you have? Great question. Years ago, I used to bring out the entire arsenal when I play live, and I had like basically one what you would call a pro guitar. My Ibanez RG750 was a pretty top of the line guitar back in the day. You know, still by today's standards, still pretty top of the line guitar. Although that one got stolen on me. And then I'd have my Epiphone Les Paul as the backup, which was the '92 Epiphone Les Paul I had was actually really good. It was pretty much a Gibson Les Paul minus the refinement. That was a great guitar, that one, and that was a great backup guitar too. And then sometimes I'd bring out some of my other like really cheap guitars. And I remember one night I brought out like 4 guitars, and you basically played maybe 1 or 2 guitars throughout the night. A lot of times, once you have a more upper end model guitar, you tend to only play that the whole night. So then you're lugging around like 3-4 guitars. Now, I got down to the point where it's like 2 guitars is enough, but maybe you might need 3, maybe you might need 2. So if you're doing 3 sets in a night, okay, here's what I would suggest. If you have a fixed bridge guitar like my SG's over in the corner there, I would go with 2 guitars. Why? Because if you break a string on a fixed bridge guitar, usually the guitar doesn't go out of tune. If it does, it goes out so slightly, you really don't notice it. And because of that, you know, you could finish the song and nobody's going to notice. If you have a Floyd Rose or just a floating bridge of any type, whether it's a Stratocaster, tremolo or whatever, you break a string and the guitar just completely detunes on you. Everything just goes completely haywire. And a lot of times you can finish the tune if there's another guitar player there by just, kind of bending single notes back into key or whatever. Or start doing widdly diddly stuff and, maybe doing, change it up a bit. I've done that and people didn't notice. But sometimes it just goes out so bad that, you literally have to take the guitar off, stop what you're doing, take the guitar off, and just, grab another guitar. That happens too. It depends on how late in the song it happens. If it's near the end of the song, it's like a 3-minute song, sometimes you can bend it back into tune, pull the strings back into tune just enough to get it to do what you want. There's a bit of a skill to it. It's something you have to kind of practice, but you can kind of do it if you know what you're doing and the song's not too vicious of a song. You could actually just press the whammy bar and just kind of play with your thumb and your kind of like this, you're holding the whammy bar so the guitar's relatively in tune. I've done that before too, and you're just holding the notes a little bit longer, whatever. But typically, yeah, if you've got like a Floyd Rose or a Shaler system or one of those Ibanez, if you have an Ibanez or whatever, you have one of those locking systems on there, and the guitar string breaks. If you really have to have the whammy bar, it might be better to have 3 guitars if you don't mind lugging 3 guitars, and if you have the space for 3 guitars on stage. I mean, to have 3 of these things on stage, where do you put them? I mean, this thing's the same size as my nephew. He's 4, and he's the size of my Flying V. You know what I mean? So there's things to consider like that. So fixed bridge, you can get away with 2 a lot of times. But when you got tremolos, 2 guitars, you're going to gamble because it's not like you break strings every time you play. Sometimes the way I was doing it years ago was I would change my strings about 2 days before every gig, and if we're playing 4 nights a week, usually I'd change my strings after, like if we did 4 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If we did 4 nights, I would change the strings this Sunday night or whatever for the following week. Or if it was like one show that week or whatever, I would do, you know, like 2 days before I change the strings, so give the strings a time to adjust and, you know, play the guitar for a couple of hours or whatever. And maybe I should do a video on properly stretching your strings, because I don't know if a lot of people, when they put fresh strings on, a lot of people don't do that, and then they have a hard time keeping tuning, and they don't know that you have to stretch your strings. You don't want to overstretch them so that you lose all the freshness out of the strings right away. But yeah, they will detune, especially on a floating bridge system. But yeah, just a quick video there. Backup guitars, I think some people take it too extreme, because I remember one night I brought out 4 guitars, the other guitar player brought out 3 guitars, and the bass player brought out 3 basses. We had no room on stage for all that stuff. It was just guitar cases piled up everywhere, and we didn't need it. You know, we just didn't need it. So, but it is something that, you know, if you plan a strategy to play live. One thing you might do, like for the first set, you might play one guitar for whatever type of music. And if the second set's a little more lively, you pick up the more lively guitar. And the last set, you bring out the whiz-bang showstopper guitar, right? Sometimes you can do it that way. Other times, it's one guitar the entire night. Take your chances. But the reason why I would suggest 3 guitars if you're doing 3 sets, if they have floating systems, if you have the room for 3 and you don't mind carrying them, is that it takes so long to change the strings on these suckers. You know, that's the problem. Then you got to retune them up. You have to unlock the system. There's a lot more. It's nice to just, okay, I'll deal with it tomorrow and grab the next one, right? So that's just, but again, if you have the room to play with that many guitars, you know, take your chances. If you're the only guitar player in the band, then yeah, okay, no problem. But if there's 2 guitar players in the band, between the 2 of you, I mean, if you each got a spare guitar, or even one spare guitar between the 2 of you, you're probably both going to function just fine, unless you both break a string, which has happened. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened. But if you each got a backup guitar, like, you know, you don't mind if the other guy uses your guitar, right? So, yeah, there's that. So anyway, I guess I'll leave it at about that. Just a little bit of strategy about playing live with guitars and how many you should bring out. Everybody's going to have an opinion on that, but the way I've always did it was 2 guitars usually, 3 if you were using Floyds and stuff like that. But if you had one fixed bridge guitar and then one Floyd or floating bridge guitar, you were usually going to be okay. But if you had 2 floating bridge guitars, a third one, again, you know, enough to get you through, as long as you didn't break 2 strings. You had 3 chances before you had to completely restring a guitar. But a lot of times in between the set, you could restring, you know, string your guitar back up and stuff like that. But getting it back into tune and everything like that, sometimes it could be a real pain. So it's nice to just, you know, okay, I'll deal with the broken string tomorrow, and then go to the number 2 guitar. But anyway, the quality of your backup guitars too. The only thing I'd say about that is, if you have a guitar that's really good, okay, usually that's the guitar you're going to play pretty much the entire night. If you have a guitar that's okay and another guitar that's okay, you might switch them up. Sometimes you'll just take a shining to even the guitar that's not your best guitar, but it's just like, I haven't played this one live in such a long time, I'm going to play this one tonight. And sometimes you'll do that too, and that's fun too. But usually the novelty of the cheaper guitars wear off really quick. So it's like, if you have 2 really good guitars, it's great, but some places you don't want to play with really good guitars. I mean, this guitar I bought with the purpose of a jam night, you know, workhorse kind of guitar, beat it up in the bars eventually. I've got to play. I haven't played like live in a bar with it yet, but I've jammed with the guys a few times. But this is a guitar that's going to take a lot of abuse over time. So I don't mind what happens to this guitar. But that said, if I had a better quality guitar, this is still a great guitar for a backup guitar. It's the right quality. It sounds good enough. It just won't sound as good as your frontline guitar a lot of times. But if you have 2 really good guitars, one for back, and you switch them out because you don't know which one to play because you like them both so much. That's okay too. That works out, and then the show never suffers because it's like, okay, well, you grab this guitar and it sounds so much better than the other guitar. The backup guitar. A lot of times the backup guitar is usually the cheaper guitar. So, but it is what it is. Just a strategy you could try. Another thing too is understand that whenever you play live, it really, like, if you play live once in a while, no big deal. But if you play live long enough, I'm talking like maybe 2 nights a week or 2 nights every other week or 1 night a week, what you're going to find is over time that guitar that you designate as the workhorse for gigs is going to get pretty beat up. And the pots are going to start to get all full of sweat, and the pickups are going to short out on you over time. I mean, these things take a lot of abuse on stage, and you don't realize it. I mean, it's not that bad, like that you have to worry about it right away. But just understand that your live guitars are always going to end up scratched. They're going to have tons of sweat on them. They're going to get more wear and tear. They're under hot spotlight lamps. So sometimes 2 cheap guitars on stage is what usually ends up happening, because you'll always see the same formula. And I'm no different than just about anybody else that has done it. Is guy comes out on stage with this prestige guitar, like maybe like my Gibsons or whatever, and he plays live, and everybody loves it because it's such a great sounding guitar, and this thing sits in the background. Then the next thing you know, you see another one of these, and the Gibson stays home because it's like, okay, now it's starting, the finish is starting to get all tarnished up and everything like that because of the abuse of it. When you have a really great instrument, you really don't want to sacrifice it in the bars as much, or wherever, like just dragging it all over the place in the back of a trunk somewhere, bouncing around in a case or whatever. But you get the idea. For backup guitars, the best quality you can get for backup, makes it that much better. But it's also too that if you have 2 decent guitars, you can rotate them too. Maybe one show you play this guitar, the next show you play the other guitar, to give one a break or whatever. And then maybe if you have a bunch of guitars, you could rotate them so that, okay, you played this guitar and now it's all gunked up and everything like that. So now you'll spend some time cleaning it. Do a service on it, which won't take you long anyway. And then what you could do is maybe in a couple of shows later you play it again and you give the other guitar a break, and all kinds of strategies like that. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So make sure you smash that like button and make sure you subscribe and share the video, and have yourselves a great day, eh?